Welcome back, everyone. We're here with another episode of our NFL season preview. We've already ran through about 10 teams at this point. Hope you've checked out all those other teams that we've gone in detail. We've hit the AFC South, the NFC South. Going to kind of bounce around at this point. Today, we're going to go with the Washington Commanders. Going to get into, like we did with every other video, their offense, their defense, their off-season transactions. Talk about what their schedule looks like, what we can expect from them this year, and if they have a chance of winning the NFC East. Going to be a kind of a clogged up division, so they may have a chance, but we'll get into that. Have topics over here on the left side. I'm going to go through everything. If you like what you see, hit that like button, hit that comment. Let me know what you like, what you don't like, and please hit that subscribe button if you feel like it. So we'll start with their last season. So I'll highlight as I go, let you know where I'm at. So last season they were 7-10. They were, they were back and forth, up and down the whole season. They had brought in Ryan Fitzpatrick. He got injured right there. I think it was like week 2 or so. So Taylor Heineke gets the starts for most of the season. Like I said, 7-10. They lost 4 straight, won 4 straight, then lost 4 straight again. So a bunch of up and down, especially if you're a Commanders fan. Wasn't that great of a season. Their coaches, they now have Jack Del Rio as the D coordinator. Ron Rivera is still there. Del Rio, he had the whole standing behind the riot at the Capitol. It's going to be hard for me to believe that those players are going to just ignore all that and want to listen to him. I know I wouldn't want to, or stand behind him as your coach. So it's going to be intriguing to see how that works out. We'll get straight into their additions. So with their additions, we'll mark as we go along here. They picked up the 5th-year option on Montez Sweat. Their D-line, we'll get into it. I mean, their D-line's amazing, or it should be. Picked up the 5th-year option on him. They brought in Trey Turner. I mean, that Pittsburgh, we're not even going to get into that. Got him in there at the guard position right now. And they also brought in Andrew Norwell from Jacksonville. They kind of switched. They lost Brandon Scherf. He goes to Jacksonville. Andrew Norwell comes in. Slightly better than Eric Flowers, who they lost, but he's older. Scherf was a Pro Bowler, but he was injury prone, so he's gone. But I mean, it's kind of mixing stuff up at the offensive line position. They could use some improvement for sure. Maybe they get some new bodies in there, can be a little better at the offensive line. Then we'll get into their draft. That was their free agency, but are part of it. Now let's get into their draft. The first pick they took at 16 was Jahan Dotson out of Penn State. PFF had him as number 56 on their big board. So a lot of people think they reached. But, I mean, that's what they wanted. They wanted him, to pair him with Scary Terry to be their number 2 wideout. He's great at catching inaccurate balls, so that's great for their quarterback that they brought in, Carson Wentz. He dropped just 5.2% of catchable balls last year, so tops in the country as far as collegiate players go. He's a speedy, crisp route runner, but one of the knocks on him is that he's only 178 pounds, so a smaller guy for sure. People complain about them taking him at 16. They traded back, to 16, but who else was there? I mean, they didn't want Treylon Burks. So, I mean, you can't really knock them for taking him there. It took him a little higher than what people expected, but they got the guy that they wanted. I feel like he can be in the slot and on the outside. So, I mean, he's kind of versatile as to what they can get out of him. Pair him with Terry McLaurin, best 1-2 punch they've had in years for sure. Then they ended up getting Sam Howell out of UNC in the 5th round. First thing is, how's Carson Wentz going to feel about this? There was the rumors about how he felt about having a backup in Philly, and then it kind of got brought up, not too much, but in Indy as well. It was on people's minds. Is it on his mind? I don't know. It's to be determined. Taylor Heineke, I think his time is done. I mean, he's going to be there, be the backup, but I mean, Carson's not worried about him. But Sam Howell, it's to be determined what happens, and does he get into Carson's head? They also got Brian Robinson in the 3rd round, huge pickup, I do believe. But another thing with Sam Howell that I just thought of is, I mean, I feel like it was a great pick. Getting him in the 5th round, he fell off last year. He lost some of his talent at UNC. but I don't feel like he's just going to lose everything he did in 2020. He's going to bounce back. I feel like he could be a great pro. He could challenge Carson Wentz in a few weeks into the season, especially if Wentz doesn't get the wins early on, but we'll see what happens. Um, Another pick that got a lot of flack was them taking Fedarian Mathis in the second round, another Bama prospect. Um, Everyone think that they reached, and I mean I kind of do too. They also, you look at their D line, they have a young D line. I know they're going to have to pay all these people, but D line is not something that they needed in the second round. I mean, you look at the secondary, I mean they could have probably got someone there, but I mean, I don't know. I feel like it definitely was a reach. Maybe he'll pan out and be a great replacement for one of these guys they have to pay in the future, but this year I don't think it was the right pick. So also finishing up free agency, I already talked about Wentz and a few of their guards and tackles that they brought in, but they also brought in J.D. McKissick, or brought him back, I should say. Um, he was about to sign in Buffalo, fell through. Buffalo drafts Dalvin Cook's brother, I do believe. So J.D. McKissick's back, great receiver out the backfield. I mean, he had 5 catches a game, it seems like. So their running back room's getting some depth. Like I said, they drafted Brian Robinson, so a lot going on with the running back room. And then you get into free agency, and we talk about Carson Wentz. We brought it up some. I mean, does he have a year like 2017 where he had like a 33-7 touchdown interception ratio, like 3,400 yards? Just controls the ball, doesn't turn over, doesn't make mistakes. If they get that Carson, they're definitely a playoff team, and they're definitely they definitely have a chance to win the NFC East. But I don't think that's what they're gonna get. I mean, he had his highs in Indy, but I mean, he also has his lows where he just crumbles under pressure. It seems losing the game to Jacksonville, throwing backwards passes in his own end zone. I mean, it's just the Carson Wentz show. They swapped second and a third, and conditional 2023 third. So I mean, is giving all that up or giving anything up for Wentz worth it? Probably not. I mean, it's an upgrade from Taylor Heineke, but I mean, it's not going to get this team over the bump in the road that they're facing in the NFC East. Dallas is still the favorite, but I mean, if they have a Carson Wentz of old, getting from 5 years ago, they could definitely be the favorite for sure. But I don't think they're going to get that. So we'll get right into their losses, their off-season losses. They released Landon Collins. I mean, he's been there for years. Kind of dropped off last year, so they get rid of him. Eric Flowers, I mentioned it earlier. Lost him at the O-line, and they lost Brandon Sheriff, their Pro Bowler. So they kind of moved some stuff around the O-line, like I mentioned earlier. Going to try a new rotation, see if they can do something. They got Sam Cosmi going into his second year. See if he can step up at right tackle for sure. They also lost Matt Ioannidis. There had been speculation of him being moved anyways before this off season, so them losing him is not a huge surprise for sure. I mean, especially look at this D line; they have a bunch of household names, so it wasn't a surprise that they let him go. So not many losses for sure, but I mean, this team wasn't great. They were 7-10, but struggled in certain areas. Defense fell off. They were expected to be great, weren't that great, so they looked to bounce back. So we get into their strengths. Carson Wentz is coming into a better situation maybe overall than what he was in Indy. He had T.Y. Hilton, who is not T.Y. of old. He had Michael Pittman, who was starting to break out. He did have the best running back in the league with Jonathan Taylor, and a good offensive line. But here, he may come here and have more weapons, per se. He has Scary Terry, one of the best receivers at catching uncatchable balls, and then they drafted Jahan Dotson, who I just mentioned was the best in the country at catching any catchable ball. So those two are going to be perfect for Wentz and his inaccuracy. Then they got Antonio Gibson, who's becoming a stud if he can stay healthy. They got the pass catcher with J.D. McKissick. They drafted Brian Robinson. I mean, he could come in. This could be a running back by committee in Washington. But, I mean, with all these weapons, I mean, Carson's coming into a good situation for sure. And then Logan Thomas, he had a great season last year. I believe he tore his ACL, so waiting for him to get back. So, I mean, he has weapons for sure. For Carson trying to have that 2017 type season again, we'll see what happens for sure. Um, I mentioned it. I mean, Terry, another statistic is Scary Terry had 25 contested catches. I mean, it just proves that he can catch anything that's thrown to him. So I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see what Carson can do with this team with these weapons that he has. Um, the D line, they did not play up to expectations last year, but I mean, these players, they are all Pro Bowl caliber players. Chase Young, amazing. Fell off some last year. He needs to bounce back. Deron Payne is run stuffer. Jonathan Allen, same thing. Montez Sweat, I mean, all these guys can be great. They just all need to put it together for sure. And then, I mean, they took I say flyer, but they reached in the second round with Fedarian Mathis. So, I mean, with those five rotating within that front four, they should be unstoppable, one of the top front fours in the league if they play to their ability. Um, Easily should be top 10 just based on talent. I mean, Chase Young, PFF had him ranked as seventh best defender under 25. So, I mean, but he should be top 5 again this year. So now we get into their weaknesses, which is what's going to hold them back from winning the NFC East if they're going to try to get through it. I mean, a lot of people hit on their inability to draft well. I mean, they've had a few blown draft picks over the last few years, but they have had some good ones as well. A lot of people have hit on this year specifically with Fedarian Mathis and reaching for Jahan Dotson early. I mean, I don't think they did too terribly bad. I mean, they did get Sam Howell and Brian Robinson as well. Percy Butler in the fourth round, he's going to get some playing time. But another weakness is spending draft capital on Carson Wentz. I mean, this is kind of like a bridge year. I guess they're still trying to compete in the NFC East. People are expecting the Cowboys to take a step back. They lost some weapons. Zeke's regressing. We'll see what happens. The secondary is not promising to say the least. I mean, they better hope that they get pressure with their front four for sure, because the pressure is going to be on the secondary if the front four does not play up to expectations or bounce back from where they were last year. I mean, and it looks like I said, Percy Butler, he's going to get some playing time, especially he may be starting in the nickel. So, I mean, we'll see what happens with the secondary, but the onus is going to be on the front four, like I've mentioned many times, because the secondary is not the strongest of groups for sure. Another issue I see is depth at tight end. They got Turner in the 5th round this year, but I mean, Logan Thomas, he has the injury. When is he going to be back is the first question. And I mean, there's still depth out there. John Bates is your number 2. 95% of football fans probably couldn't even name their number 2 tight end, and understandably so. I mean, there's still people out there, veterans such as Eric Ebron, Jerry Cook, even Tyler Croft, even though he's injury prone. Could bring someone else in still, see what happens at the tight end position. And linebacker may be their biggest issue. They got Davis last year in the first round, and he did not play up to what they expected for sure. He really did nothing at all. Cole Holcomb may be the only reliable linebacker that they have. So, I mean, linebacker group that outside of the front four, it may be a problem for Washington. But, I mean, we can see what happens this year. I don't think the front four will be as unproductive as they were last year, relatively speaking, based on their talent. But we'll see what happens with them for sure. So, I mean, looking at the outlook, I've already discussed most of this on both sides of the ball. I mean, the offense can be above average. The defense is going to have to be above average. And if both of those play out, I mean, it could be a good season for the Commanders. The NFC East is not the strongest of divisions. The Cowboys look to regress some, I do believe. The Giants are not a threat to win it. And the Eagles may be the biggest threat. Haven't mentioned them yet, but we'll get into them here shortly whenever we look at their schedule. So Vegas has them winning 7.5 games this year. And I mean, I feel like that's a pretty good estimate, but we'll go through their schedule. Let me bring up their schedule real quick. And we'll break down week by week what we expect to happen. Week 1, the Jags, they come in, they're revamped on offense. They spent probably, I believe it's the most money in the offseason. I feel like they come in, they're hyped up under Doug Peterson, um, and the Commanders lose week 1. Wentz, I don't know how he's gonna do. I feel like he may follow up on based on what he did in Indy last year. Week 2, Lions are the up and coming team. Everybody's on board with them, and I feel like they get the win here. Dan Campbell, this may be their home opener, and even though they have Jared Goff under center, this team has so many up and coming weapons all around offense and defense. I don't think the Commanders can get the win here. Week 3, they play the Eagles at home. To me personally, the Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC East. I feel like Jalen Hurts is going to be running for that most improved player. He's going to be probably the most improved player in the NFL. He's going to take that Josh Allen type leap in year 3, and I think the Commanders start 0-3. Not a good start. Got Carson Wentz not looking good. But now we get to the Cowboys, who I believe probably are the Vegas favorites to win the division, but they're going to have a lot of regression, I do believe. They traded away Amari Cooper. He and CeeDee Lamb kind of ran the same type routes, kind of the same type player, so I understand why they moved on from him. Couldn't get them both in the same type position to catch the ball. Um, Zeke regressed, but they do have Tony Pollard. Uh, Turnovers on with their defense. Turnovers are such a flip of a coin. I don't think they're going to have that much luck as they did last year with the turnovers. So their defense could quote unquote regress based on what the turnovers are, the turnover differential for them, I should say. Dak, there was a lot of issue with him. I don't know if regressing is the right word, but he did not run the ball like he used to. All of his stats were down. He stayed in the pocket way more. I don't know if it's fear or if he's just wanting to prove that he's a pocket quarterback or can be, but his numbers were down across the board, especially with the run game whenever he scrambles. And they're trying to look to get him scrambling more. Probably get back to that old Dak when he was a possible MVP candidate 2 years ago prior to the injury. So we'll see what happens, but I think the Commanders can get the win here. They go into Dallas and upset them. So now they're 1-3. Carson's trying to make the bounce back for sure. After starting 0-3, the media's going to start chirping. So they go to the Titans. The Titans' weakness, which is passing, is the Commanders' weakness, defending the pass. So this could be a toss-up, but I think that they can get the win here. Front four is going to step up here. They're going to get 2 in a row. They follow that up with the Bears on Thursday Night Football. The Bears are awful on both sides of the ball. Justin Fields, unless he's throwing to himself, they're not going to score any points. I think Wentz gets 3 in a row here, and then they're looking at 3-3. Anything's possible in this division. They play the Packers in Week 7. The Packers may have easily a top 5 defense. Could be top 3, could be the best defense in the league, and I wouldn't be surprised, which is going to be a nightmare for Carson Wentz. They're not going to get the win there. They play the Colts. I think the Colts want to prove something here. Wentz is still starting for the Commanders at this point, but he does not get the win against the Colts. They're 3-5 going into Week 9. They play the Vikings in Week 9 at home. I think the Vikings are one of the teams that take a step up this year. They've been they got rid of their old head coach, and I think Kirk Cousins kind of gets unlocked a little more. That offense gets a little unlocked. Defense plays above average, and the Commanders lose again. So then we're looking at 3-6 going into Monday Night Football against the Eagles. Huge matchup. They're playing in Philly. I personally think the Eagles are the team to win the NFC East, and I don't think the Commanders can compete with them. Jalen Hurts is playing out of his mind. They got A.J. Brown. Devontae Smith is your number 2. The run game is great with them. I don't think they can contain them. But then they play the Texans in Week 11. Right now, they're 3-7 going into Week 11. Texans may be playing for the number 1 pick. So the Commanders get the win here. They then follow that up with the Falcons at home. Desmond Ridder may be starting at this point, but I think the Commanders, if they hadn't, after that Monday Night Football loss to the Eagles, the season, may be in jeopardy. Ron Rivera's job may be in jeopardy. I think this may be the point that Sam Howell starts to get some reps. They got Taylor Heineke as number 2 on this depth chart, but his time has come and gone. I don't think they're going to put him back in over Sam Howell to get reps unless they just absolutely think Howell is not ready or nowhere near it. So I think Howell comes in, hypes up the team. They get the win in Houston, follow that up with another win at home against the Falcons. The Falcons' defense is god awful. Howell could put up 30 points easily against that Falcons defense for sure. So he gets 2 wins in a row. They then play the Giants. They're now looking at a 5-7 record going into Week 13. This could be the turning point of the season. But unfortunately, I feel like the Giants are the better team. Brian Daboll's come in and improved Daniel Jones, even though they didn't give him that 5th-year extension or didn't commit to him. I feel like they're the better team at this point. But so they go into the bye, and then they have the Giants again at home. But I think the Commanders can at least split the season series. Sam Howell is playing closer more to his 2020 form when he was at UNC. He's solidified himself being a starter here in Washington, at least for next year, and he's won 3 of 4 games. So to finish out the season, they're going to be competitive at this point, but they're playing the Niners in San Francisco. San Francisco is probably either playing for that NFC West title or a wild card berth. And I mean, DeMeco Ryans could be a head coach, could be a top 10 head coach probably right now, but he stayed in San Francisco as their D coordinator. I mean, you look at the Commanders' linebacking core, they cannot cover Deebo Samuel on all those little short routes. They cannot cover George Kittle. Good luck to them stopping the run game and Trey Lance in San Francisco. That's a loss. The Browns, their season could be a debacle for sure. I feel like, we don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. I feel like he's probably going to be out for the whole season, and the Browns season could be a complete debacle. And I feel like the Commanders, I had it initially as a loss here, but I feel like they could get the win here. At this point, they're going into the last week, and they've lost 9 games and won 8. No, sorry. 7. So they're 7-9 going into the last game of the season. The Cowboys are probably playing for the division title or a wild card berth as well, but we all know they are known to implode. And Mike McCarthy, remember what happened last year on the last play of the game when they had Dak running the ball ridiculously. I feel like the Commanders get the win here, keep the Cowboys out of the playoffs, prep for the next season, and they finish the season 8-9, which would be a great bounce back on that second half of the season, winning 5 of the last 7 games with Sam Howell under center. Don't make the playoffs, but they're looking bright towards the future, which would be great in my eyes. I would like to see Sam Howell come in, take that starting job from Carson Wentz. The earlier the better. I mean, I don't think Wentz is the future for them. He's just a bridge quarterback at best. So it's going to be intriguing to see what happens for sure. So yeah, 8-9 for them. So now what I do with each video is go into the top players at each position, which players can be top 5, which players can be top 10. Top 5 for sure. And if they want to be competitive, Chase Young has to be a top 5 a defensive end. He came out, I apologize. He came out his rookie year and was amazing. Regressed a little bit last year. I feel like he could bounce back, had injuries. But he could be a top 5. If he's top 5, that's definitely going to help out this defense that's going to need help, especially in the secondary. Top 10, Scary Terry could easily be a top 10 wide receiver. He could be a top 5 if he had a great quarterback, but he doesn't have good enough quarterback play this year, especially in the first half of the season with Wentz. So top 10 for him. The entire D-line, if they want to be a great top 10 defense, the D-line can be top 10 altogether as a whole, and it could carry this team to some wins for sure because they're going to need help, especially up front. Another top 10 player could be Antonio Gibson, but with his injury history, I'm kind of afraid to say that. And also the fact that they may be doing a running back by committee with this group that they have. MVP candidates, no way. They have no one on this team that could be an MVP candidate. Chase Young, if he goes absolutely insane, but I don't expect it. Most improved player, I think it's going to be the linebacker Davis. Jamin Davis, I may be mispronouncing that, but I feel like this is his year to shine. There's no competition based on what he did last year, and it's hard for him not to improve based on last year's efforts. He could come in, be that leader of this team, especially in the middle that they need. So I do believe he should be and can be the most improved player on this roster. Players that could drop off candidates. Again, I think it's Carson Wentz. I know I've harped on him a lot in this video, but if that's possible, I mean, I feel like his career, I mean, he's bounced around too many times. If he didn't do it with Frank Reich, he's not going to do it with Ron Rivera and Scott Turner. I don't see it happening, to be honest with you. So I feel like he's going to be the drop-off candidate. There's a lot of players that did not play well last year that could get worse, but I don't. I mean, I feel like Wentz is the focal point that is going to be the drop-off candidate. Now we get what I feel like their best and worst outcomes are. Best outcome is Carson Wentz reverts back to 2017. Carson Wentz and his team is great. They're a top 15 offense. The defense is great. The front four is the top 5 front four. They're carrying the defense. If they're above average on both sides of the ball, they could definitely be competing for the NFC East title and get into the playoffs as a 4 seed. I mean, that's the best outcome. Another thing, best is Carson is horrible. Sam Howell comes in, takes the starting job from him, and carries this team to around a 500 record, which looks great for the future. Above that, I don't expect any better outcomes. Worst outcome is Carson Wentz comes in there and takes all the playing time from Howell. They continue to ride him to a sub 500 record, or Howell gets playing time and looks horrible. The defense, the secondary is bad. They don't get anything out of their draft picks. I mean, Jahan Dotson could be bad, but I don't think it's going to be horrible. But that is the worst outcome, is that Carson Wentz carries them and they stick with him throughout the whole season. Most intriguing thing for me, like I end every video with the most intriguing thing, is when is Howell going to get playing time? I would hate for them to go the whole year and don't let him see the field. If he's horrible in practice, yeah, I understand that, but still, let him get his in-game reps. Carson Wentz is not your future. He's a bridge quarterback. You want to see what you have in Sam Howell before going into next year's quarterback class, which is one of the deepest quarterback classes over the last few years. So I want to see when Sam Howell is going to hit the field, how much playing time is he going to get, and what he can do with this team, and in regards to having to carry them into the future. So that's our breakdown of the Washington Commanders. Hope you made it this far. If you have, I do appreciate you watching. Please hit that like button. I'm trying to get some support as an up-and-coming channel. We're going to break down every team before the season starts. Can't wait for the season to get here. Get into some more detailed breakdown once the season gets started. Recaps, projections for the season. We'll start with some Madden gameplay here soon, as soon as it drops. But please hit that like, comment, and subscribe button. I will greatly appreciate it. And I can't wait to start the next one. We're going to start bouncing around from team to team, going with the worst teams and working our way up to the best by the end of the season. But until then, catch you on the next one.